My name is Beatrice D. Lopez, 32 years old, and I should have recognized the first crack in my life the moment my boyfriend looked at me across our kitchen table and asked for permission to sleep with other women. I am a civil engineer. I spend my days calculating load-bearing capacity, stress tolerances, failure points, and the invisible pressure that eventually brings down things people assumed would stand forever. I build structures meant to last, bridges, drainage systems, retaining walls. Things that cannot afford romantic thinking, because gravity does not care how beautiful your intentions were. So when my own life started showing structural cracks, you would think I would have caught it earlier. Maybe I did. Maybe I just loved Sebastian too much to name it. Sebastian Vale and I met sophomore year of college. He was helping coordinate some campus event, all charm and confidence, moving through the room like he had been born knowing how to make people feel included. I was there because my roommate dragged me out of the dorm after 3 straight nights of studying. Sebastian was the kind of man who could hold 6 conversations at once and make every single person believe they mattered most. I was 20 years old, awkward, ambitious, and exhausted from pretending I did not want to be noticed. He noticed me. That was all it took. We dated on and off for 2 years before it became serious. Then it stayed serious for a long time. 12 years is a long time to build a life with someone. Long enough that people stop asking when you are getting married and start assuming you already are in every way that counts. We had a private commitment ceremony 14 months ago, small and elegant, not legally binding the way marriage would have been, but emotional enough that I treated it like a promise carved into stone. The first 6 months were good. Not perfect, but solid. Sebastian ran an event planning business. I was buried in a major infrastructure project. We existed in that comfortable rhythm of 2 people who knew each other well enough not to perform. Coffee in the morning, shared grocery lists. Half-finished conversations continued 2 days later. His shoes by the door, my hard hat on the entry bench. A life with routines. A life I thought had weight. I thought we were fine. I was not paying close enough attention to what fine was covering. It was a Tuesday night. Nothing special. Leftover pasta. A show neither of us was really watching. Rain tapping against the window softly enough that the apartment felt smaller, warmer. Sebastian turned down the volume and looked at me with an expression I had never quite seen before. Not nervous. Rehearsed. That was the word I would find later. At the time, I only felt the air change. "I've been thinking a lot lately," he said. I set my fork down. About what? About myself. About what I need. About growth. I waited. Sebastian folded his hands together on the table. He had beautiful hands. I hated that I noticed that in the middle of the conversation that would end us. "I love you," he said. My stomach tightened. Nothing good comes after someone says I love you like they are putting a cushion under a body before it falls. "But I feel like there are parts of myself I never got to explore," he continued. "Not emotionally, not honestly." I stared at him. "What does that mean?" He inhaled slowly. "I want the freedom to be intimate with other women." The room went silent except for the rain. He kept talking quickly then, like he had memorized the order. Not as a lifestyle, not forever, not because he did not love me, just something he felt he needed to understand about himself, before resentment built between us. Something about honesty, something about modern relationships, something about not wanting to lie. I remember the exact feeling. It was not rage. It was not even heartbreak. It was like watching a bridge I designed take a hit and standing completely still, waiting to see if the damage would spread. I said, "I need time to think." Sebastian blinked. "That's it? What were you expecting?" "I don't know. I thought you'd be angrier." "I'm not going to respond emotionally when I can respond thoughtfully." He nodded slowly, but there was something in his face I did not like. Surprise, yes. But beneath that, disappointment. As if I had not played the role he prepared for. He went to bed early. I stayed at the kitchen table long after the rain stopped, staring at the bowl of cold pasta between us. Here is the thing about knowing someone for 12 years. You learn their rhythms. You know when they are uncertain, when they are performing, when they are testing words they do not believe yet. Sebastian had not been uncertain. He had seemed relieved, and relief comes from unloading something already carried. Not curiosity, not growth, a secret. At 2:00 the morning, I opened his laptop. Not to spy, I told myself at first. He had asked me earlier that week to review a contractor invoice attached to one of his event builds. We had shared passwords for years. Nothing unusual, nothing dramatic. The invoice was in his downloads folder. I found it in 30 seconds. Then I noticed a minimized browser tab at the bottom of the screen, small enough to miss. I almost closed the laptop. Almost. I clicked it. An inbox loaded. A private messaging platform I did not recognize. The thread at the top was unread, time-stamped 11:17 p.m., right around the time Sebastian had been sitting across from me, telling me he needed freedom. The name at the top was Fiona Holt. I knew the name vaguely. Sebastian's ex-girlfriend from college. Real estate broker now. The kind of woman who showed up occasionally in his social media comments, with just enough familiarity to be explained away as old history. The unread message said, "How did she take it?" I did not slam the laptop shut. I did not wake him. I pulled out a chair, sat down properly, and began to read. Fiona Holt was not just an old name from Sebastian's past. She was still in his present. The thread went back 11 months. I read it the way I would review a structural failure report, from the first warning sign to the final collapse. No skipping, no dramatizing, just data. At first, the messages were harmless enough to be explained away. Updates about work, jokes about college, comments about mutual friends. Then the tone shifted, slowly, carefully, almost intelligently. Fiona began asking questions about us. Is Beatrice always that serious? Do you ever feel like you have room to breathe? Do you think she sees who you really are, or just who fits into her plan? Sebastian answered at first with little complaints, then longer ones, then paragraphs. According to him, I was too practical, too career-focused, too measured. I did not make him feel seen. I planned too much. I questioned too much. I loved him, but not in a way that made him feel alive. Reading it felt like watching someone take 12 years of your tenderness and rearrange it into evidence against you. Fiona knew how to listen in exactly the wrong way. She validated every insecurity and shaped every frustration until I became the obstacle and she became the answer. Then I found the message that mattered. 7 months earlier, Fiona had written, "You need to tell her. Frame it as exploration. Tell her it is about growth, not rejection. If she loves you, she will understand. If she doesn't, then maybe you finally have your answer." So the conversation on my couch had not been Sebastian's confession. It had been Fiona's script. I took screenshots of everything. Every timestamp. Every thread. Every sentence that proved this had been happening before our ceremony. Before he stood in front of me and promised honesty with his hands trembling in mine. Then I uploaded it all to a password-protected folder in my cloud drive and closed the laptop exactly as I found it. At dawn, I made coffee. Sebastian walked in wearing sweatpants and a soft expression, like he expected me to be emotionally tender after a night of processing. "I've been thinking," I said. His eyes sharpened with hope. "I want to talk properly," I continued, "but not while I'm still reacting. I need a few days." He reached across the counter and squeezed my hand. "That means a lot." I squeezed back. Then I drove 2 blocks away and called my older brother Conrad. "I need your help," I said. He did not ask questions. He only said, "Come tonight." Conrad lived alone in a brick townhouse with too many locks and not enough furniture. 15 years in private security after the military had made him careful, in a way most people only pretended to be. I arrived at 7 with my laptop and a printed copy of everything. He read in silence. When he finished, he leaned back and said, Does he know you know? No. Good. Keep it that way. Then he picked up his phone. Before we go further, I need to show you something. The photo was from our commitment ceremony. Candid, slightly blurred. Sebastian's best friend, Peter Voss, stood near the side exit with his phone pressed to his ear, one hand covering his mouth. I remembered that moment vaguely. Peter had slipped away twice during the reception. I assumed it was some work issue. He co-owned a yoga studio and was always managing something. Conrad had noticed more. His body language was wrong, he said. Too tense, too careful. Then after the second call, he went straight to Sebastian and said something low. Sebastian nodded and changed the subject when I came closer. I frowned. You never told me. I wasn't sure. Then 2 weeks after the ceremony, I heard Peter tell him, "You need to make a decision before it gets more complicated." I thought it was business. Now it was clearly not. If Sebastian had carried this secret for nearly a year, Peter had not just known. He had been helping manage the scaffolding around the lie. Conrad and I started with what I could legally access: shared household accounts, transaction history, emails connected to our family admin account. Most of it was ordinary, but then I found cash withdrawals. 4 of them, $400 to $700 each. Always Friday afternoon. No receipts, no matching expenses. 3 fell on weekends, when Sebastian said he was with Peter, a yoga retreat, a brunch, a studio event. Then I found the hidden email address. Sebastian had created it 8 months earlier, and a recovery notice had accidentally gone through our shared household account. That address linked to a private calendar app. One user was Sebastian. The other was registered under Fiona's real estate agency email. They had a shared calendar. My stomach tightened. Conrad found one of Fiona's agency properties listed as unavailable for the past 7 months, a furnished 2-bedroom service apartment downtown. He stared at the screen. Then, at me. Give me the weekend. I nodded, because for the first time since Sebastian asked for freedom, I was starting to build my own. That same afternoon I called attorney Nora Ashby. Her name had come from a colleague whose divorce had been handled so cleanly that his ex's lawyer supposedly described the experience as surgical. That was what I wanted. Not revenge in the dramatic sense. Not screaming, not throwing clothes into the yard, not some public scene that would let Sebastian call me unstable. I wanted surgical. Nora's assistant gave me an appointment 2 days later. I walked into her office with everything printed, categorized and arranged chronologically. Messages, cash withdrawals, timeline contradictions, Fiona's coaching, Peter's suspicious behavior, the shared calendar, the furnished apartment listing Conrad had identified. Nora read silently. I respected that immediately. She did not gasp. She did not say, "Oh my God." She did not perform sympathy. She moved through the pages like a professional examining a structure before deciding where to cut. When she finished, she stacked the papers neatly. "You've done good work," she said, "but there is one more thing you need to check before we discuss next steps." She turned her monitor toward me and pulled up a scanned document from our home loan application. Sebastian and I had applied together months after the ceremony, back when I still believed we were building a future. Nora pointed to one line. "This account, do you know anything about it?" I leaned closer. It was a savings account in Sebastian's name alone, not a business account, not attached to household expenses. A personal account with a recorded balance of $23,000. I had never seen it before. "When was this opened?" I asked. Nora clicked through supporting documentation. 2 months before your ceremony." The room seemed to narrow. 2 months before Sebastian stood in front of me and promised honesty, he had quietly opened a separate account and started putting money into it. "Where did the money come from?" "That," Nora said, "is exactly what we need to establish. If it is private savings, that is one thing. If it is undisclosed income or connected to Fiona, that changes everything." For the next hour, Nora laid out strategy with the same calm precision I used on job sites. First, protect my premarital assets. The property I owned before Sebastian moved in needed a clean paper trail, purchase records, mortgage history, proof that Sebastian had made no meaningful financial contribution. Second, separate my personal savings and investment accounts from any joint structures. Not hide them, separate them legally and visibly. Third, do nothing obvious. No confrontation, she said. No sudden behavioral change. Do not let him know the ground has shifted. I understood that kind of engineering. You do not warn a failing structure before you relieve pressure. You brace what matters first. Within 10 days, Nora had filed the protective documentation. Everything I owned before Sebastian remained clearly mine. My finances were cleanly separated. My records were airtight. Then I built the trap. Not because I needed to manufacture anything. Sebastian had already built the trap himself. All I had to do was stop standing in the way. One evening, I told him I had been thinking seriously about what he said. I told him I wanted him to understand what he truly needed. No pressure, no surveillance, no questions. I suggested he take the upcoming weekend for himself. The look on his face almost made me sick. Relief came first, then calculation. He recovered quickly. I've actually been meaning to visit my cousin, he said. Maybe that would be good. Of course, I said. Conrad did not follow him directly. We had already agreed that was too risky and unnecessary. Instead, he monitored publicly visible information, Fiona's agency activity, property availability, business calendar updates. On Friday evening, the furnished service apartment that had been unavailable for 7 months quietly changed status in the internal system to occupied private booking. Saturday morning, Conrad was parked 2 blocks away. At 9:47 a.m., he photographed Sebastian's car in the parking structure. Time-stamped. Location verified. The car did not move until 4 p.m. Conrad sent the photos to me. I forwarded them to Nora without commentary. Then I wrote to Peter. Not a threat. Not an accusation. Just a carefully worded email asking whether he had any context for Sebastian's undisclosed savings account, given Peter's close involvement in Sebastian's personal and financial planning. Peter called within 40 minutes. The moment I heard his voice, I knew. He was not calling to protect Sebastian. He was calling to protect himself. He rambled first. Small talk. Concern. Vague mentions of how distant everyone had felt lately. I let him talk. Silence is useful. People rush to fill it when they are afraid. Finally, he said the account was Sebastian's private matter, that he had no legal connection to it, and that he hoped I was not drawing unfair conclusions. I'm only trying to understand the source of specific deposits, I said. If you have context, now is the time. 4 seconds of silence. Then the crack opened. Peter admitted he and Sebastian had been developing a wellness and events business together for almost a year. A private concept. Something they had not wanted me to know about, until it was solid. Sebastian had opened the account to hold initial capital. I thanked him and ended the call. I was in a single-party consent state. The entire conversation was recorded. 3 minutes later, Nora had the audio. 2 days later, she filed. By the time Sebastian was served, I was no longer sleeping in our apartment. I had moved out quietly over 4 days, taking only what was mine and what mattered. Documents, personal files, family jewelry, work equipment, a few books, clothes, the framed photograph of my grandmother that had sat on my desk since college. Everything else stayed behind because it no longer felt like home. It felt staged, like a set where I had been performing the role of woman who did not know. Conrad gave me his spare room without comment. When the process server handed Sebastian the papers on a Wednesday morning, I was sitting at Conrad's kitchen table, drinking coffee I could not taste. My phone rang 7 times in the next 2 hours. Sebastian. I did not answer. Then came the text. B? What is this? I looked at it for a long time, not because I did not know what to say, but because I knew exactly how little I wanted to give him. Finally, I wrote one sentence. I hope you find what you're looking for. Then I turned my phone face down. Nora moved faster than I expected. She presented the documentation to Sebastian's attorney. The message thread with Fiona, the coaching, the private calendar, the hidden savings account, the cash withdrawals, the time-stamped photos of Sebastian's car outside Fiona's service apartment, and Peter's recorded call confirming the secret business venture. Sebastian's attorney came back within 48 hours wanting a quiet settlement. Minimal disclosure. Clean split. Move on, Nora declined. She does not get to hide the foundation after building on rot, she told me. Then I contacted Hugh and Irene, Sebastian's parents. Not out of cruelty. Not for drama. They had contributed a documented financial gift toward our home purchase. That gave them a reason to know why the asset was now part of a legal fight. I called Hugh directly and kept my voice calm, respectful, factual. He did not interrupt. When I finished, the silence on the line felt heavy enough to hear. Finally, he said, "Thank you for telling me yourself." Irene stopped returning Sebastian's calls within 24 hours. Fiona went silent the moment her name appeared in Discovery. No public statement, no emotional defense. Just an attorney requesting all correspondence go through counsel. Peter refused to take Sebastian's calls. Within 1 week, the support network Sebastian thought he had built around himself began backing away from him like smoke clearing after a fire. The parallel life he had hidden inside mine started collapsing under daylight. Then Nora called on a Thursday morning. I was on my second coffee at Conrad's kitchen table when I heard the pause in her voice. "Beatrice," she said, "something came up in Discovery. I need you to come in today. Bring Conrad if you want." Conrad drove. I did not argue. Nora had a printed document face down on her desk. When we sat, she turned it over and slid it toward me. 4 deposits into Sebastian's personal account. 4,200, 3,800, 5,100, 6,000, $18,100 total. The originating account was listed under Fiona Holt Real Estate Firm. I stared at the page. Nora explained that the transfers had been labeled as consulting fees for event coordination services. But Sebastian had never invoiced Fiona's company through his event business. He had never mentioned her as a client. The payments bypassed his business entirely and went straight into the hidden personal account opened 2 months before our ceremony. At minimum, Nora said, this is undisclosed income. At maximum, it suggests a financial relationship tied to the affair. Either way, it is a serious problem for them. Them. For the first time, I liked that word. Then came the turn none of us expected. Fiona's attorney contacted Nora. They wanted the financial transfer details sealed under confidentiality. In exchange, Fiona would provide a sworn affidavit confirming the personal nature of her relationship with Sebastian. I looked at Nora. What would it include? Timeline, nature of the relationship, any relevant communications. Conrad leaned back. She's protecting herself. Yes, Nora said, and she may give us everything. She did. Fiona's affidavit confirmed the relationship began 4 months before our ceremony. It confirmed she had suggested Sebastian frame the request as exploration and growth. It confirmed he had been planning a long-term exit from the relationship while still letting me believe we were building a stable life. It was not poetic justice. It was better. It was documented truth. 2 weeks later, Nora presented the full case in settlement proceedings. Sebastian's lawyer walked in hoping to negotiate from rough equality. He walked out with significantly less. My premarital property stayed mine. The hidden account was treated as an obscured asset. Sebastian received no support. The asset division reflected his concealment and dishonesty. He signed on a Friday afternoon. I was not there. Nora called when it was done. "It's finished," she said. I sat in Conrad's guest room, staring at the boxes stacked against the wall. For 12 years, I had thought the worst thing would be losing Sebastian. But in that moment, I realized the worst thing would have been staying with the version of him I had finally seen clearly. The rest of the collapse happened quietly. That was the strange part. When people imagine betrayal being exposed, they picture screaming, public humiliation, doors slamming, dramatic confessions in crowded rooms. But real consequences often arrive like water damage. Slow, silent, spreading behind the walls until one day the entire structure has to be condemned. Sebastian tried to call me for 2 weeks after the settlement. At first, the voicemails were angry. "You didn't have to do it like this. You made me look like a criminal. You and Conrad planned this like some kind of attack." Then they changed. I made mistakes. I was confused. Fiona got in my head. "I still love you, B." That last one sat on my screen for almost a full minute before I deleted it. Love. I had spent 12 years believing love meant showing up, building slowly, staying steady, making plans that could survive hard weather. Sebastian had treated love like a room he could exit while leaving the lights on behind him, just in case he wanted to come back. I did not answer. Fiona's life started cracking too. Not because I chased her. Not because I exposed anything publicly. I did not need to. The discovery process had placed her name too close to hidden transfers, sworn statements, and a relationship that started before my commitment ceremony. In her professional circles, people did not need the whole story. They only needed enough of it to smell risk. A mixed-use development deal she had been building toward for 2 years fell apart within 6 weeks. Her co-investors stepped back. Her firm released a careful statement about restructuring future partnerships. The service department she had kept unavailable for months was quietly relisted. Fiona did not send me a message. Smart woman. Peter's wellness and events idea with Sebastian died before it launched. No capital structure, no trust, no partnership left to sell. The yoga studio expansion he had been planning stalled, then closed. I heard from Conrad that Peter and Sebastian had not spoken since the settlement. That surprised me less than it should have. People who help build a lie rarely stay loyal when the lie becomes expensive. Hugh called me once about a month after everything was finalized. Sebastian's father had never been warm exactly, but he had always been decent to me. Quiet, practical. A man who measured his words before spending them. "I'm sorry," he said. I was standing in Conrad's kitchen, looking out at the small backyard where leaves had started gathering against the fence. "You didn't do this," I said. "No, but I gave money toward a home I thought my son was building honestly with you." His voice broke there just slightly. "Irene is heartbroken," he added. "Not at you. I'm sorry for her pain. And yours," he said. "I am sorry for yours." That was the closest thing to clean grief I received from anyone connected to Sebastian. No demand, no request, no attempt to make me responsible for easing his family's shame. Just acknowledgement. I appreciated it more than I expected. After that, I stopped tracking the fallout. Not because I was above curiosity. I was not. Some mornings I still wondered if Sebastian woke up and reached for a phone that no longer connected him to me. I wondered if Fiona regretted coaching him, or only regretted leaving a trail. I wondered if Peter replayed that phone call and hated himself for filling the silence too quickly. But eventually, those questions became less useful. Some questions do not have answers that help you heal. What I knew was enough. The lies began before the ceremony. Sebastian stood in front of me, with a parallel relationship already alive in the background. He let another woman help him script the conversation that was supposed to make his betrayal sound like growth. He hid money. He built an exit. He let me keep investing in a future he had already started dismantling. That was enough information. I signed the lease on my new apartment on a Monday morning. Ground floor, which I normally would have avoided, but the building had good bones. I liked the layout. The kitchen faced east. Morning light came in clean and direct, touching the counters before the rest of the room woke up. The living room was smaller than what I had before, but it was honest. Nothing in it carried the weight of being shared with someone who had lied beside me for months. Conrad helped me move. He carried boxes without asking what was inside. At one point, he set down a lamp, looked around the empty room, and said, "This place feels like you." I laughed quietly. "It's empty." "Exactly." That made me cry a little, which annoyed me, so I pretended to look for scissors. The first night alone, I arranged books on shelves, unfolded sheets, and put my grandmother's photograph on the desk by the window. I ordered Thai food and ate it sitting on the floor, because I had not assembled the table yet. No one texted asking where I was. No one rehearsed a speech in the next room. No minimized browser tab waited in the dark. I slept 8 hours. The next morning, I woke before my alarm. For a few seconds, I did not know where I was. Then I saw the pale light through the blinds, the boxes stacked neatly against the wall, the quiet little kitchen waiting for me. I made coffee. I stood at the window and watched the street come alive. A woman walked a small dog in a red sweater. A delivery truck idled near the curb. Someone across the street carried flowers out of a car. Nothing remarkable happened. No revelations, no grand feeling of victory, no music swelling. Just an ordinary morning in an ordinary city, and for the first time in a long time, I was not performing calm for someone else. I was calm. People sometimes think endings need to be loud to be real, but mine was quiet. It was signed documents, clean accounts, a new key, a cup of coffee in a kitchen where no one had lied to me yet. Sebastian got what he claimed he wanted: freedom. Fiona got the consequences of confusing influence with control. Peter got the lesson that silence is safer than panic. And I got my life back. Not the old one. Not the 12 years I had already spent, but the part still ahead of me. I did not rebuild out of spite. I rebuilt because I finally understood that love without honesty is not a foundation. It is decoration over rot. And I am done living inside structures that look stable only because someone keeps painting over the cracks.